Also set in France at about the same time as the Cathars, which suggests that another Christian group made a discovery which really might reveal that the resurrection story was not true. In the 13th century, this whole area was a stronghold of the Knights Templar, a strict religious and military order of warrior monks. Local historian Thierry Lecomte has spent the last 12 years uncovering the history of the Knights Templar in this region.
The
Templars came to this region. There are traces of them all over the countryside. Down there at the bottom, near Château de Blanchefort, there are ruins of an old Templar command post. The Knights Templar were committed to poverty, chastity, and the protection of pilgrims en route to the Holy Land. But their main purpose was to keep Jerusalem and the holy sites of Christianity free from the forces of Islam. During the years they were in the Holy Land, the Templars built their own castles. But they buried their dead in graveyards they excavated near to the original Temple of Solomon. And certainly, during this time, they were thought to have discovered great treasures. Eventually, the Templars were forced to leave the Holy Land in 1186. They returned to France. Certainly, the Templars remained powerful, rich, and incredibly secretive, so it's not surprising that people speculated about them. And there grew a legend that the Knights Templar had discovered Jesus' bones in Jerusalem, that they had brought them back to France, and they had buried them somewhere near here. The legend that 1,000 years ago the Templars might have found an ossuary box containing Jesus' bones has led modern scholars to a small church in the village of Rennes-le-Château. Writer Richard Andrews is convinced that there are clues here that might reveal what exactly the Templars did find during their excavations in Jerusalem.
One can ask the question, did the Templars find relics, an ossuary full of bones, that they thought were possibly the bones of Jesus? Now, if they had found these, it would have been a shock to the system, because the Templars were good Christians. This would challenge the whole doctrine of resurrection, because here are mortal remains. So we ask the second question, why should the Templars risk being accused of heresy and bringing the bones that they thought were Jesus's back to this area? The answer is simple. If they had found something which they believed were the bones of Christ, they needed a safe location. You could hide a church in these mountains, let alone a small ossuary. You can get lost in these mountains today. Imagine what it was like 1,000 years ago.
In the late 19th century, the local priest here, called Bérenger Saunier, claimed to have found ancient documents. And whatever they were, he certainly became very rich afterwards. Richard Andrews has found clues among these parchments, using elaborate geometry and transferring symbols from ancient paintings onto equally ancient maps, all in the hope of finding a Templar treasure trove.
The clues that we found point to a map in the form of a hexagram, which is also known as the Seal of Solomon, but it is the Star of David. This map points to a specific site. Now we know that the priest, Bérenger Saunier, became fabulously wealthy, but we are sure that he didn't actually find what he was looking for. We can deduce, perhaps, that Saunier received money from patrons to look for a location in the area that might reveal perhaps the bones of Christ. Whatever it is, we do know one thing for sure. The secret that Saunier was giving clues to was heretical.
Cuvier died in 1917 and took his secret with him to the grave. That hasn't stopped enthusiasts like Thierry Lecan from continuing to search on the basis of Richard's work and trying to solve the mystery.